What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan, or they call me Coach Rawls as well. I'm here representing Wellthy and Relax, where we help first generation professionals grow into where they want to go by prioritizing their wealth and well-being first thing in the morning. All right, now today I thought it made sense for us to talk about what first generation professionals are, right? I don't think a lot of people really understand what that means, but that's our target audience, right? So we want to make sure to educate. And the reason why we're targeting you is because being a first generation professional was very near and dear to myself and my wife, Candace, man. I can't tell you how many years we spent trying to figure out this experience and navigate the different obstacles that came with it, man. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of healing, it took a lot of stress, it took a lot of pain, it took a lot of happiness, it took a lot of sacrifice, man. But we're here, we made it, and that's why me and Candace wanted to come together and provide services for y'all, man, because we learned some vital lessons along the way that are so important for us first generation professionals to get ahead. But before we get there, we got to understand, what is a first generation professional? All right, so a first generation professional is basically when you're the first in your immediate family to graduate college and get a job in a professional workplace. So essentially, we're white collar professionals from the working class. And scholars might refer to us as social class migrants because we were born and raised in the working class and migrated into the middle class. So why do we talk about social class? Why is social class very important here? Social class is important because it truly impacts the quality of your life and your access to certain key elements of life, like your healthcare, like the neighborhood that you grow up in, like the schools that you're able to go to, like the transportation that you can take, the types of jobs that you can get. It affects the food that you get. So based on the amount of money that your parents were able to bring into the house, it affects your life, which means it affects your values, what you deem as important. It affects your motivations, right? So let me break down some of the values and mindsets that you have when you're growing up in the working class versus when you're growing up in the middle class. So let's start with the middle class, which represents most of corporate America. When you grow up in the middle class, that means your parents have at least went to college, got their degree, and now they have professional jobs and they're able to afford different things for you. They're able to afford for you to live in a nice neighborhood. They're able to afford school clothes every year. They're able to buy healthy foods. They're able to drive a decent car. And because of that, you're more so in thriving mode. When you come from a family like this, I read up that most of the values that your parents are instilling in you is teaching you that your voice matters, teaching you how to advocate for yourself, teaching you how to be independent, to stand out from your peers. You're also unafraid to have differing opinions from the others, right? They're most likely raising them on independent values. And some of the challenges that come with coming from middle class is that you might feel more entitled, right? Your pride and ego might get in the way. And as we've seen with toxic leaders sometimes, that they need to be in control. Like they like to tell people what to do, top-down management. So let's get into the working class, where I'm from, right? When you're from a working class family, it's most likely that your parents did not attend college and they worked blue-collar jobs, which required hard manual work. Your parents were always working late nights. They may not have been around as often. Essentially, you're growing up in survival mode because it's tough to make ends meet, which impacted the schools that you're from. So for me, I grew up in the hood of Rochester, New York, where I had to go to public schools, and public schools was wild in itself, right? And walking down my street to just get on the bus to get to school was a dangerous act. Getting access to certain foods, we had to grow up on food stamps. Survival mode is basically the things that seemingly fulfill you at the time is the avoidance of pain and the seeking of pleasure, but not purpose though. So for me, when we could only afford to go to public city schools, and we had to go into an environment that was dangerous, that was always in lockdown, that people were always getting jumped, or you had all these types of peer pressures to fit in with certain crowds, peer pressures to wear certain clothes, peer pressures to act like somebody who you're really not. It's tough, right? So the motivations are different. from a person who's going to a good school, who can learn in safety, whose teachers ain't fighting the kids in the classrooms, right? Or when you go to the cafeteria, you don't really have to worry about your psychological safety like that. When you come from the working class, your parents are raising you on interdependent values, which means that, what you value is interconnected with everyone else around you. So for me, growing up, I was told to, just keep my head down, work hard, get an education, follow the rules, don't stand out too much. And those types of values stay with me as I go through life. So some of the challenge that came with that is, number one, imposter syndrome, not really feeling like you're good enough wherever you are, or the fact that you needed to just keep your head down and fit in. You always wanted to go with the crowd. It was hard really understanding your own authentic voice. That was challenging for me because my parents divorced and I grew up in a single mother household. So my father really wasn't in the house. I saw him on the weekends, and my mother was working late nights as well. So as I was coming around those teenage years where I really needed to learn about manhood and learn about myself, learn about what I valued, learn about the kind of person I wanted to be in the world, it was tough to really figure that out on my own. So I had to resort to the people who are around me in the streets, the people who are in the schools, who were from the streets. So everything that I was seeing, I had to base who I wanted to become off of what I was seeing in them. Whatever would help me survive in that environment, that's what I had taken on. So if it meant that I had to chase a bunch of women in order for me to feel like I was a man, then that was what I was doing. If that meant that I had to get a job every single summer making my own money just so that I can buy school clothes, some J's, some Nikes, LRG clothes, academics, some Timbs, a nice North Face winter coat, I had to work my butt off to get those things just so that I can feel that I can fit in, so that I don't get targeted, so that my safety isn't that much at risk. So again, the motivations were different. And because I really wasn't learning who I was so reliant on external validation, it was tough for me to make my own decisions for myself. And lastly, because it's hard for me to make my own decisions, it's hard for me to prioritize myself. So anytime that it came to an obstacle that I had to get over, I would always think about what would so-and-so do, or what would so-and-so think of me if I made this type of decision, instead of making a decision specifically because I thought it was good for me. But you know what, man, when it comes to coming from the background like that, we often overlook the assets that come with that experience. And that's why Wellthy and Relaxed is here. This is why I'm here right now, because we need to learn how to reframe everything that we've been through, everything that we continue to go through, all of that weight that we're carrying on our shoulders. We need to learn how to reframe it, because in essence, those are gifts, those are strengths. And I'm going to tell you why. The flip side of thinking about what everybody thinks about us is that when we're in the workplace, when it comes to being a leader, we have to be considerate of everyone's needs. You have to be considerate of the collective. So the fact that we come from that background in these leadership positions, we're now able to take the different opinions and thoughts and feedback from everyone and come to a consensus, which is a skill very much needed in leadership. The second thing is we're more empathetic because we come from struggle, because we come from situations where we had to persevere from, where we had to build up resilience from. Whenever we're encountering obstacles in the workplace and whenever someone's going through it, whenever our team members are trying to make it through a challenge and they're not sure how to make it through, you can rely on us to understand somewhat what you're going through. We're able to be so adaptable to any situation. We had to navigate our homes, we had to navigate the streets, we had to navigate public city schools, we had to navigate these spaces where we don't see anybody who even looks like us. So we're very much adaptable, which means that any situation that gets thrown our way, we're able to overcome the situation because we know how to react. And the last thing is that we're humble people. We come from nothing. So to get to this place, we're so appreciative and we understand what it took to get here. We don't take it for granted. And people like to be around people who are humble, but also confident and knowing of themselves. Nobody wants somebody who is 100% in their ego all the time and operating out of a place of their pride. You want to be humble. You want to make sure that you know your value, but you're talking to people as if you're not speaking down to them, right? So before we can even realize the assets that come with being a first generation professional, you got to understand how it affects us in the workplace. One of the stats that I looked up is that people who originate from the middle class and enter the workplace get paid 17% more than people who originate from the working class, us first generation professionals. And you want to know why that's the case? Because we don't even participate in the activities required for us to climb the ladder. Like when it comes to politics, when it comes to showing up on a call and engaging in small talk, letting people know who you are, showing up as your full authentic selves. The thing that I notice in the workplace is that there are a lot of first generation professionals, but we're all in the shadows. We're not necessarily showing up and standing out. We're not advocating for ourselves. We're not networking with leaders across the organization. We're not exemplifying those very assets that folks who grew up in the middle class easily bring into the workplace because that's the values that they were raised upon. And if you're Black, you don't really see that many people who look like us in the workplace, which means it'd be hard to really walk up to a coworker and talk about the struggles of your family suffering back home, going through mental health issues, going through poverty. You can't really tell them about the anxiety you feel about not feeling like enough or being an imposter in the tech field. It affects us in so many ways, y'all. For me, it affected me so drastically that I was so anxious, man. I was getting so many migraines on a regular because I couldn't feel like that I could show up as my full self. For example, we used to have potlucks in my organization, and bro, I never participated. And the thing is, I love me some soul food. I love to cook some fried chicken. I love some macaroni and cheese. I love some black-eyed peas, right? But I didn't feel proud enough of where I was from to even feel comfortable with bringing that into work and not thinking about what people would think about me, right? Isn't that crazy? It's because I didn't know enough about myself. I didn't know enough to value where I came from. I didn't know enough to value the gifts that life has taught me at that point. But let's think about how being a first generation professional affects you outside of work. For instance, you may have poor spending habits because you grew up without the blueprint. You grew up with family not really teaching you the right money habits, teaching you how to budget, teaching you how to even check your net worth on a regular. Or you may have poor physical health. You grew up eating unhealthy foods all the time. No one was really showing you the better way. All you had access to was processed foods. No one was telling you to work out regularly. A lot of us deal with anxiety and depression because we don't really understand how valuable we really are. So that affects us in many ways. We don't show up as confidently. We're not able to follow through on our goals. We're not able to follow through on the things that we want because we don't even believe in ourselves. Or for me, it was even hard to commit myself to a relationship because of the emotional trauma I suffered as a kid with my damaged relationship with my mother. Or it was because of what my boys was teaching me in the streets, that my value was derived on how many women I could bag, instead of that one good woman that could help me grow and become a purposeful, intentional man. So I say all this to say that we need to learn how to thrive. We need to get out of that survival mode and we need to get in thriving mode. We need to be able to embrace the assets that people have when you grew up in the middle class, like advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself, knowing your value, and embracing the assets of being adaptable, being empathetic, being humble, being attentive to others' needs, being able to be a servant leader to others. Combining the assets that you get from growing up in the working class and growing up in the middle class together will make you a complete force in this world, man. I'm telling you, it's been proven. My life has proven it. And the only way that we can do that is if we do the inner work, man. The work that we do here at Wellthy and Relax, which is getting yourself a morning routine, man, where you're working on yourself, your mind, body, soul, relationship, and your finances first thing in the morning. You got to make sure that you're waking up and being grateful for where you are right now. Meditating so that you understand that you need to be right here, right now, in the present, not anxious about the future and not worried about the past. You also got to make sure you're regularly exercising, challenging yourself, showing up consistently so that you can build up that confidence in yourself that you could employ in the obstacles that will inevitably come your way. Making sure that you're reading something that stimulates your mind, watching motivational videos every single day that is implanting stories of other great leaders, other great people who come from tough backgrounds like you, but were able to accomplish such great things. Spending time to work on a hobby. See, a lot of us, we grow up chasing money. We think that chasing money is the answer. That's what happened with me. I thought that just following the rules, going to college, getting an education, getting a job in the middle class, white collar environment, I was going to be good. But in actuality, I was neglecting the well-being. I was neglecting that inner work. I was neglecting figuring out who I was. And who I was someone who loved to help people. I loved to inspire people with my story. And I wanted to become a mindset coach. That's what brought me here today. You could also take time to plan for what you need, like planning for therapy, planning for getting a coach, right? Taking time to plot out what you need to be able to excel in your life. That is what my morning routine was able to do for me. And I'm telling you, it's gonna help you do the same, man. So if you're a first generation professional, especially if you're a Black first generation professional and you're ready to get real, you're ready to face yourself, you're ready to stop lying to yourself, you're ready to stop making excuses for yourself, you're ready to stop hanging out with people who ain't helping you, you're ready to drop those old habits, you're ready to excel to a whole nother level, bro, sis, come work with us over at Wellthy and Relax, yo. But the first thing you need to do is go access our free 3-day Getting Real mini course, where we're gonna walk you through the 3 top questions that you need to ask yourself to get the clarity you need, to get you unstuck, to get you going and motivated on those goals that you have. And then after that, you can book us for a free Get Real call, where we're gonna sit down, we're gonna understand your answers to 3 of those questions. And we're gonna walk through them one by one and get the clarity to see if you are a good fit for working with us. If you are a good fit, we can work with you and we can get you a customized morning routine specifically tailored to your values, to your why, to your goals. It's specifically tailored to you. Everybody needs a morning routine that's gonna help them grow into where they wanna go. Because before you could achieve anything, you gotta become that person that achieves that. Okay, and that's what the morning routine does, is it helps you become this person day to day to day, building yourself up 1% every single day. But listen, man, I appreciate y'all for being here. Thank you for listening in. I hope this was helpful, and I'm gonna check in with y'all later, all right? Be easy.